Hello and welcome to WCTV National Sports Debate Show. Plead your case. We will first look at baseball. The MLB lockout hurting baseball right now without opening day. But interesting topics being brought to life such as bigger bases, a pitch clock, and banning the shift as we take a look into these new stipulations. The NFL draft is right around the corner. It's a new era in Seattle. And with the combine ending this past weekend, we will talk about who stood out and who's getting drafted where. Then we will look into the NBA, who's making it to the playoffs and who is not. Finally, the dance is upon us. March Madness kicks off on Selection Sunday with conference tournaments ending that day as well. Who is making it all the way and who is getting sent home at the buzzer with a double order of onions? Who's your dark horse? My panel will be joined by Jeremiah Miller and Carter Newcome. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Plead Your Case.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
Welcome to Plead Your Case. My name is Joe Veneziale, and I will be joined by my panel, my two good friends, Carter Newcome and Jeremiah Miller. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. And first, let's talk baseball. Unfortunate that the lockout is ruining opening day, but they have new stipulations that they're being put into the game. Bigger bases, moving from 15 inches to 18 inches, establishing a pitch clock to have pitchers pitch quicker than usual, and banning the shift is also being brought up. And gentlemen, first I'll ask Jeremiah. Jeremiah, we'll talk about bigger bases first. Moving from 15 inches to 18 inches, what do you think that's going to have a factor on the new game if they implement that rule, and what do you think is going to change?
I don't know if much will change. I think the biggest thing with the bases, I think it was more of a safety concern. I know a lot of first basemen have been getting stepped on, a lot of torn Achilles tendons. I think that was the biggest thing with the bases being moved from 15 inches to 18. Was safety. I don't think there'll be a big increase in stolen bases. I don't think there'll be an increase in infield singles. I don't think it'll make that big of a difference. I just think the MLB's biggest standpoint on bases was just player safety.
No, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference in terms of stolen bases at the end of the season. I think you might see maybe 10 or 15 more stolen, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. I think really ultimately, when you look at it, it's just mainly a health thing and safety for players. And I don't think it's going to be something that you're going to really even notice as the season goes on. And the only thing I will say about it is on Twitter, I did see the differences between the two bases. The new one does look a lot bigger than the old one, but at the end of the day, I don't think you're going to really notice anything about it, Joe.
Absolutely, and I feel like it's not really a big stipulation. Safety for bigger reasons for the MLB definitely will be a different factor. But moving on to the pitch clock, I do have a little bit of an idea of what I would like to see for the pitch clock. Maybe the pitcher establishes himself on the mound, start a 1-minute timer as the pitch clock would wind down. If he were to throw a pickoff or something, the timer would either stop or restart. On that matter, make games move quicker. Jeremiah, what do you think on that standpoint, and do you see anything different with that?
Yeah. So what I've been reading, it sounds like that the pitch count is going to be somewhere between 14 and 19 seconds. Now, whether that's when the pitcher establishes himself ready to pitch or when that's as soon as he receives the ball back from the catcher at home plate. And then I've heard when there's runners on base, that might extend between 21 and 23 seconds, just depends. So the pitcher has time to look off a runner at first or second, what have you. So, I don't know how much of a difference it's going to speed up games. They've tried it in the minor leagues, and it's gone down about 20 minutes on average. I don't know if that's really a huge difference for the MLB, but I think the MLB could use this. I think this younger generation really wants the game to go faster. It's not like the NFL or NBA where it's a lot fast-paced, where I think the MLB is lacking in that matter.
Right. And, Carter, I ask you a different standpoint on that topic. People say you're going to lose the suspense of a pitcher figuring out what pitch he wants to do, what strategy he wants to do in the bottom of the ninth. And maybe that might take a little bit longer than usual in regular time, but with this pitch clock, it might be a little different coming down to these crucial bottom of the ninth pitches where you need to pitch well. And Carter, what do you think about that?
I really don't think it's going to change too much, honestly. I think, when you think about it, if you're watching a game, the 15 seconds, I think that's typically what it is now. I don't know the official number on average of when, from the time the pitcher comes set to whenever they throw the next pitch, but I don't think it's going to make much of a difference at home. Obviously I think it's going to be good for the game if it's going to shorten it, because our generation just doesn't like to watch sports for 4 hours, which a lot of baseball games seem to take forever. But other than that, I think that's really all it's going to do. Moving
from the pitch clock to banning the shift being a part of baseball for a good while. Lefties coming up to the plate, second baseman moving in the right field, and so have it. And boys, I ask you, banning the shift, is that going to hurt baseball, or is that going to, go back to traditional play, I should say, back in the old times where people want it to be, at least, or is that going to make a huge factor moving forward with that?
I don't really have a strong opinion on banning the shift. I didn't have a strong opinion about shifts before. It is what it is. I'm not going to hate to see it go. But if you look at it in other sports, defenses in the NFL evolve all the time to new advanced offenses. Baseball was just doing their homework. If a guy bats a lot, if he pulls a lot to left field, they're going to shift towards left or vice versa to right. So like I said, I'm a little neutral on it. I don't hate it, but it was just a part where defenses were just, advancing and becoming more well-rounded and doing their homework.
Carter, quickly, what is your opinion on banning the shift?
If an NFL quarterback can't break a two-man high safety look, the NFL is not going to ban that. So why should the MLB ban the shift? You're in Major League Baseball. You should be able to hit the ball the opposite way.
Absolutely, and I feel like the shift would be a big factor if they do ban the shift, but I do not have a standpoint either way. But that's enough time for that segment. When we come back, we'll look at the NFL Combine and the NFL Draft coming up right here on Plead Your Case. Back here on Plead Your Case, and moving from the NFL to the NBA. Stars are merging out of Philadelphia and Boston, but the Heat are atop of the East, and the Phoenix Suns heading the top of the West. Carter Newcome, I ask you, who do you see standing out in this midseason prediction so far, and who do you see taking it the distance on that?
I think the Suns are one of the more consensus picks. I think they're just a complete team. They play both sides of the basketball. And obviously their win-loss record shows they've pretty much beat up on just about anyone they've played this season. I think you'd be hard-pressed not to choose them this year. And in terms of the East, I think you got to look at Philadelphia. They just got James Harden and Joel Embiid. The foul line's just crying because of how much they're going to be at the line as the year goes on, especially come playoff time when they're grinding for every single basket. Another team in the East to look out for is the Boston Celtics. They're one of the most efficient offensive and defensive teams in the NBA. So I think those are probably the three teams I would look at to make a run towards the finals.
Yeah, I like the Suns again. The Suns, you look at their record, best in the NBA, 52-13, 28-7 at home. That's huge. And when I look at other teams in the West, one I thought I liked coming in until I did my research, Golden State. Third in the West right now, 44-22 overall, 27-7 at home. That looks pretty good. 17-15 on the road. Really haven't been showing up away from San Francisco, have the Golden State Warriors. So don't know how I feel about them. The Memphis Grizzlies, though, I think John Morant right now is my MVP pick. He's playing the best basketball of his life, and of anyone in the NBA right now. He's got the Grizzlies 45-22, sitting at second in the West. And when I go over to the East, yeah, the Sixers just got James Harden, but it's hard to pick against the Milwaukee Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets. Kyrie Irving just had 50-piece the other night. For me, it's hard to go against those two teams just because of Philly only playing half a year together with Harden and Embiid, as great as superstars as they are. It's hard to get that to mesh in the playoffs.
No, I agree with you, but another sleeper pick that you guys did not talk about is the Chicago Bulls. I mean, the reincarnation of Michael Jordan comes out when DeMar DeRozan hits that floor in Chicago. I mean, they went on a 11, 12-game winning streak at one point this year. One of my sleepers in the playoffs of that Eastern Conference. But, gentlemen, I ask you, Jeremiah, you're ready to talk about that statement I just made. But it's true. It's true. I mean, DeMar DeRozan awaked himself, I should say, when he comes out in Chicago. And Chicago looking very nice, sitting at 39-26. What do you agree just about with that statement?
Listen, the Bulls pick was fine, but you coming out and saying DeMar DeRozan was the reincarnation of Michael Jordan. No, the reincarnation of Michael Jordan was when he came back from baseball in 1995. I don't know if I dare go and say DeMar DeRozan is Michael Jordan reincarnate. I mean, let's slow her down, Joe. I mean, that was a little egregious right there. But I like the Bulls, don't get me wrong, and I think DeRozan's putting up MVP-like numbers, but to go and say he's the GOAT, Joe?
I didn't say he was the GOAT.
You said Michael Jordan reincarnated.
Right, yeah, that's a reincarnation of Michael Jordan, not essentially the GOAT, but yeah, Carter.
When is the 8-part documentary series on DeMar DeRozan coming out?
I hope it comes out within the next 3 years.
Is he going to play Double-A baseball?
I mean, I hope so. Again, I mean, really just go in to this Chicago lifestyle of him where I put number 23 on him at this point. I mean, really, at this point, that's just me. But yes, Carter, who do you think is going to sleep in these playoffs coming up?
I mean, I don't hate your take about the Chicago Bulls, Joe.
Oh, I do.
I mean, I think they're a team that could definitely mess around and get win a few games and win a few rounds in the playoffs. But as far as a sleeper team goes, I don't think they're a favorite by any means.
No, absolutely. And moving from playoff stipulations to being not in playoff stipulations, let's talk about the Los Angeles Lakers, the Lake Show, I should say, and LeBron not really being LeBron. And this Laker team not really meshing together of what hopes and dreams came out as they won it back in the bubble back in 2020. And Jeremiah, what do you think's going on with this Lake Show?
The Lakers are just being the Lakers right now. They'll find a way to make the playoffs. It's a LeBron James-led team, especially with the play-in games now. Right now they're sitting in at the 9th seed, which 7, 8, 9, and 10 will all play in a play-in tournament. LeBron will win it. He'll average a triple-double. We've been here before. We've seen it before. LeBron will get him in. There's nothing to be the record doesn't look nice, but, I mean, if you go into the playoffs with a losing record, anybody can win it come April. So the Lakers will be fine.
You just can't count out LeBron James. I don't think they have a chance to even get close to the finals, but they're going to mess around. They'll get into they'll play and they'll win in the play-in games. I honestly feel it feels like the NBA just added that just so LeBron got a little bit more safety to get into the playoffs, just because they can't let their poster child not be in the playoffs. But as far as that goes, they're going to win the play-in game, probably get bounced in the first round. Lakers
being Lakers, LeBron being LeBron, and moving from the NBA to the big dance in college basketball when we come back right here on Plead Your Case. Welcome back to Plead Your Case. Moving from the NBA to the big dance, the granddaddy of them all in NCAA men's basketball, the March Madness tournament of this year. We are in March, and gentlemen, things are already getting exciting, especially these conference tournaments ending. And let's talk about Chattanooga beating Furman for the SoCon championship at the buzzer. Double order of onions in that one. And Jacksonville State coming out of the ASUN conference. Bryant putting on the beatdown against Wagner of their conference. And Jeremiah, I ask you, with these early teams and these buy-ins for these 16 seeds, 15 seeds, 13 seeds of that nature, what do you see in these teams coming into the tournament?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Carter and I were talking the night of the Chattanooga game. He was talking about a team that I'm sure he'll talk about when we get to him. But I said, I like this Chattanooga team. And they were down by 9 at halftime to Furman, pushed back, got into overtime, and eventually won on that buzzer beater, which was an all-time March moment. They're going to head into the tournament 27-7. Looking at the bracket right now, Joe Lenardi, this just came out this morning, has them right now listed as a 13 seed going up against that 4 seed, likably like Providence, who I think is an overrated conference champion. So if you want to pick a 13 upset, I think Chattanooga is the way to go. They're one of the many teams I like this year. I think this year will be a year of the mid-majors in the tournament.
I mean, looking at some of those teams, I watched South Dakota State, Joe, and they were playing South Dakota, their in-state rivals, the semifinals, and I texted Jeremiah right away. I said, I think this team's going to mess around and they're going to upset a team. Especially, I think Joe Lenardi has them right now as a 12 seed. I would not want to be the 5 seed playing them. They just won their conference tournament last night over North Dakota State. They're going to be an issue, and they really can do it all. They're offensively, they're gifted, and they won 30 games this year, which is impressive.
Yeah, I do like both of those picks, but I got to go with my boys at Bryant, bringing out the 16th seed, beating Wagner in that beatdown of a game. It was up 36-3 at one point. Stands are fighting each other. Peter Kiss of Bryant doing things as well. You know, playing against the 1 seed, you never know what's going to happen, boys, but in that sense, we look from the low end of the pack in the 16th seed to who's going to be number 1 heading into these different divisions. Jeremiah, I ask you first, who's going to be number 1? And, who do you see as number 1 in this standpoint right now?
I think it's Gonzaga just because of Gonzaga's resume. They're Nets number 1 in the country. That's pretty much given. I think they'll be the number 1 overall seed. You look, Lenardi has Baylor, Arizona, and Kansas on the 1 line as well. I think if we see Kentucky win the SEC tournament, they can bump them up. There's a couple others like Purdue and Illinois, if they can make a run in the Big Ten, or Wisconsin even. Those are a couple teams, but I think the 1 line, I think those are pretty much going to stay there. Even Baylor and Kansas are both 1 seeds as of right now. They probably are going to meet in the Big 12 championship, and no matter who the loser of that championship is, I'd say they'll still probably both be 1 seeds.
Yeah, my 1 seeds I have written down here. I got Gonzaga and Baylor. Kansas, I think, is there. And I think it's pretty much a couple teams going to be jockeying for the last spot. I think right now, Wisconsin, I think if they make a run in the Big Ten tournament, I think they can lock up that 1 seed if they were to go through and win it. Obviously, Duke's around that conversation as well, even though they just lost North Carolina. I think they're good enough. And with Coach Krzyzewski, you can't really ever count that team out. Arizona is the current, I think it's the 4th 1 seed right now, even though they're the 2 overall team in the country. I have a little bit of bias, but I think they're going to lose in the Pac-12 conference tournament coming up here, so they might fall off that 1 line. But I think a combination of those teams will make the top 4 seeds.
No, I do like your Wisconsin picks, both of you. And another team that I see on the outskirts, I should say, of being a number 1 seed, standing at number 5 in the country right now, is this Kentucky team. Going into the SEC tournament coming up this weekend, having a very, very powerful team, ones that we haven't seen from the boys in blue in a very long time, I should say, with Calipari still being at that regime, standing outside at the 5th seed, again, not projected to be a number 1 seed right now. But hey, you never know. In these conference tournaments, they can make a little bit of a run for it, and I see them maybe squeaking in there. Maybe, just maybe. But, it's March Madness. You never know what's going to happen. And, we look at the middle of the pack because those are the teams that really just push forward and make it to these Elite 8 Sweet 16 games that are fantastic. But who do you see, Carter, let's start with you first. Who do you see in the middle of the pack really making a stride in this tournament?
I think North Carolina is definitely a team. They're going to probably come in at about a 9 or 8 or 9, I guess, would be my estimation of where they're going to end up after the ACC tournament's done. They're skilled. They have, Baycott, who's just fantastic, one of the best players in the ACC, if not the best player in the ACC. So I think that's a team you can't count out. I really like the ACC in terms of North Carolina and Duke. I think you can never count out the Blue Bloods out of that conference.
Right. Jeremiah, I asked you the same thing. You look at these mid-major teams, these dark horses. I don't want to say dark horse. They're not 13 or 12 seeds, but those teams that can really make a push in that, who do you see coming out on top of that?
I like Carter's pick as well with North Carolina. I think they're meshing great together right now. I think they're playing their best ball right now. It shows with the dominant fashion and putting Coach K's last game to bed at Cameron Indoor. But I like a team. They're right now on Joe Lunardi's 4 seed. I like the Arkansas Razorbacks. I like what the Gus Bus does, bringing in recruits out of the transfer portal. I really like them to make a run. Another team out of the SEC, the Tennessee Volunteers, I think they could be a sneaky pick. But to go a little off the wall here, I really like the Colorado State Rams. They are second out of the Mountain West Conference. Thank you. I had a little bit of brain fart there, but out of the Mountain West, I think they can roll through their conference tournament right now. And right now they're a 7th seed, maybe get up to that 6 line. Don't know if you want to get to that 5-12. I don't think anybody wants to get there. But a 6-11, I think that'd be comfortable for the Rams. And I think you're going to see the Colorado State Rams definitely play on the second weekend and maybe sneak into the Final Four.
23rd team, the Colorado State Rams, out of their conference in the Mountain West. And we look at these conferences, you look at these different conferences and the Blue Bloods out of those conferences, talk about Duke, talk about North Carolina, talk about Kentucky. But what is another team in this tournament right now that really stands out more than the other ones, handing at the top of the throne? My pick is going to be the Purdue Boilermakers coming out all the way through. It's just a Big Ten pick in my standpoint. I feel like they're going to have a really good Big Ten tournament this weekend. But Jeremiah, I ask you first, who do you see coming out on top?
Right now, I'm rolling with the Kentucky Wildcats. I think they're the best team. I think they got the best front court and back court in the country. I like the Kentucky Wildcats rolling through March. I think Calipari gets a second ring. And I think it's going to be led by the big train, Oscar Sheboy. I think he's going to have a monster tournament. He leads the country in rebounds right now, averaging over 17 points a game as well. I think Oscar Sheboy, the pride of Kennedy Catholic up in northern Pennsylvania, I think he's really going to lead Big Blue Nation to another national title.
I think you can look at any of these teams that are, in the top 4 or 5 in the Big Ten and SEC, and you can really say that they can make a run. I have written down, I have Auburn. I think they were really hot earlier on in the year. They kind of fell off after losing to Arkansas, but I think that they're still going to be around a top. They're 2 or 3 seed probably in the tournament, and who knows, if they win the SEC, you never know what could happen. I think that they can get hot. I think Walker Kessler's a great. You can transfer from North Carolina. I think he puts them in a great position to win as a big and down low. And I think another team, and my Big Ten team out of this is Purdue. Jaden Ivey, I think is the best player in college basketball in terms of NBA ready. And teams who have the best players, I think, typically will win a couple games in March, maybe that they shouldn't have without them.
Never know what's going to happen for the dance. Maybe see some onions, in the words of Bill Rafferty. 1 seed's losing, 2 seeds losing. The big dance is upon us. But that's all the time we have here for Plead Your Case. My name is Joe Veneziale. Thank you to my 2 good friends on the panel, Jeremiah Miller and Carter Newcome. You have been watching Plead Your Case.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.